Thank you, everyone, for coming to the first TabaPay webinar of the year, New Year, New Rules, and how TabaPay can help. Rodney Robinson is going to be leading this discussion. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to him. And again, if you have any questions, please click the Q&A button, and we'll get to your questions during the webinar. And yes, the webinar will be recorded. I'm going to let you take it away from here, Rodney.
Great. All right. Well, everyone, first, thank you for coming. We have noticed in the past really year, some network rules have dramatically impacted some of our customers. And we want to head that off this year with, we think, are the biggest impact rules that are going to be effective in April. And so this webinar, we hope you learn and we can take action prior to the April rule changes. The biggest one that we're going to discuss is the excessive retry rule. It's in effect today, and some of our merchants paid quite a bit of money when it first came out in April last year. There's changes to excessive retries on any sort of collection or account funding transaction that will dramatically increase this if we don't get it under control. Then I want to discuss disbursement reversals and when you can do them and what the different network processes are. And finally, refund authorizations, as I know there are some entities or some of our merchants still have problems with refund authorizations or being able to do a refund if the cards are not valid anymore. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First, before we do, I just want to thank everyone. We had a very good year in 2022 with a lot of our merchants growing and their businesses grew. And our continued support, we hope, helps you folks grow again this year. So when you folks grow, we feel great, and hopefully you can support your net growth. Some items we just want to make you aware of is we're now live in Canada, and you can process on both sides of the border through our system and the same transactions. Instant disbursement in Canada's, instant collection in Canada. We're about to go live in Latin America as well. So if you want to bring your services to Latin America or Canada, we'd love to support you on that. We also are live now at 15 US banks and one Canadian bank. And so if you want to expand your banking base, we're happy to help that as well. So one connection, multiple countries, multiple banks. Okay. All right. So first, let's talk about excessive retries on Visa and MasterCard. In April of last year, Visa and MasterCard introduced rules for excessive retries. These are companies or these are transactions where you try to collect the payment over and over again and do an account funding over and over again. In April of last year, Visa and MasterCard implemented what we call category 2 through 4 response codes. So if a merchant tried a card 15 times in a row within 30 days and received one of these response codes, actually any response code really, and then tried it the 16th time within 30 days and got a similar response code, they'd get charged 10 cents. 10 cents is not a lot, but any time after 15, if you received a decline, you would get another 10-cent charge. So a merchant that would try a card 30 times in a month would get 15 at no additional cost, and Visa would charge you 10 cents for every try above 15. So if you tried 30, you would pay an extra $1.50 for those transactions on categories 2 through 3 response codes. And most of the merchants have been able to get that under control and stop the massive number of retries. In April of this year, Visa is implementing additional retry fees. And these are a little more stringent, where if you try a card once and you receive any of these response codes in category 1, and then within 30 days, if you try it again and you get one of these category 1 response codes, Visa will charge you 10 cents. And if you try it 30 times in 30 days and you get the same response code in the category 1s, you're going to pay 29 times 10, $2.90 additional for the Visa excessive retry fees. Our concern is that some of the digital banks, Chime is an example, Cash App, let the consumer disable their card. And when that happens and you try to collect it, you get a 57 response. So you can imagine a Chime or a a Cash App customer turning off their card, and then a lender trying to collect on that card, they'll get a 57. If they try again and again without that consumer enabling the card, they'll get 57 over and over again. And for every try above 1 in a 30-day period, you're going to get a 10-cent fee from Visa. And you can imagine this adds up quite a bit when you're collecting hundreds of thousands of payments a month. Okay. Additionally, MasterCard rules also have an excessive retry fee now as well. MasterCard looks at the number of declines in a 24-hour period. So if a merchant tries over 20 times in a 24-hour period to collect on a card and receives a decline response, you'll pay 10 cents. And while that's hard to believe that a merchant would try 20 times in 24 hours, we do have that, where some merchants try to collect over and over again in a 24-hour period, and this does hit merchants. So these retry fees, right now, category 2 through 4, right? You have 15 tries in 30 days and you don't pay the fine. Above 15 days or 15 declines in 30, you pay 10 cents today. In April, you pay on these category 1 decline codes after the first attempt. And MasterCard is effective today if you try more than 20 times in 24 hours. So these are the excessive retries. We want to give all of our merchants a heads up on the category 1 decline codes and discuss now ways to avoid these, okay? So first, let's discuss best practices. So first, these 57s, where a customer's turned their card off and you're trying to collect. The best way on these recurring payments to avoid these 57 responses is to email your customer before you try to collect. And we actually think this is best practice and should be done anyway today. And tell that customer when you're going to collect, day and time, so they can unlock their card before you try to authorize it. Okay, so email them, let them the amount, day, and time that you're trying to collect. Okay, and then if you're running batch collections, do not retry a category response until you speak to the customer, right? These Visa retry fees will just add up very quickly on you, okay? Additionally, if you are getting 14s or 54s, let us know. 14 is a card doesn't exist, the card's been changed. The 54 is an expired card. Any return codes like this, contact us. We'll enable Visa and MasterCard account updater for you so that we get refreshed cards and you avoid these response codes. So the best practices, we hope will avoid it, but if not, then we can help. If you look at what our solution is, we're able or will be able to block these excessive retries for you. So you can ask us to monitor your purchase authorizations, and we'll be able to stop excessive retries. As an example, if you are trying a card and you're getting, say, an NSF, a 51 response, and you do it 15 times in a month, we can start blocking 16th and forward transactions for you on this particular card. And that way you'll avoid the retries, you'll get your 15, and then we'll block after 15 in a 30-day period to prevent you from getting hit with these excessive retry fees, okay? On the new retry fee, on the category 1 and done, we'll be able to block that in April for you as well. So if you get a 57, you want us to do it, we can block your subsequent authorizations on the 57 response or on those other category 1 response codes as well, to prevent the fee from occurring. Okay, so the message that I want to leave you with is that the category 1 response codes are in April. They'll be very expensive as it's a one and done. You send one authorization, get a negative response on one of those category 1 response codes, and you're going to start paying 10 cents extra per authorization. Okay, the way to prevent them is email your customer ahead of time with the amount, date, and time you're going to authorize the card. And if for whatever reason you don't want to do that or you can't stop it, you can ask us to start blocking these in April, and we'll block it after you get the first 57 or the first category 1 response code. Okay. And if you want to start blocking excessive retries with your current your current setup on the 15 retries in 30-day period, let us know as well, and we can start blocking that shortly. Okay. All right, I'd love to shift gears now and discuss disbursement reversals. Disbursement reversals. So disbursements, a lot of our merchants do them. And many merchants ask us to refund or reverse these transactions for various reasons. Networks let us reverse dispersals for fraud, any sort of duplicate or IT error, or any sort of fraudulent funding case in a P2P transaction. So these reasons allow us within the rules to refund or reverse the transactions. With Visa, we're successful. We're successful 9 out of 10 times on getting Visa reversals refunded to the merchant. Okay, pulling funds back from the cardholder. When we aren't successful, typically means the money's no longer on the card. Okay. With MasterCard, we actually are not very successful on getting money back from the cardholder and giving it back to the merchant. And so let's discuss the differences between the two. So the Visa process, when you as a merchant ask us to reverse a Visa disbursement, we send a request in through the network, and we contact the issuer through the network. Very easy process with Visa. And if we do not hear back in 5 days with either yes or a no, we can go ahead and reverse that payment. So it's typically a 5-day process with Visa to reverse a disbursement. Money would have to be on the card. They require us to reach out to the issuer, but the issuer, if they don't respond, we can reverse it in 5 days. Contrast that with MasterCard. With MasterCard, we get the email address from MasterCard and have to email the issuer the details, and then we have to wait for the issuer to give permission to reverse. And what we've discovered with MasterCard is a lot of the contacts are out of date at the issuers, as well as issuers just don't respond very well. Additionally, when we submit the paperwork, MasterCard advertises a $50 fee to reverse one of these disbursements. And so it's a more difficult process because you have to email and get an explicit response back from the issuer to reverse your disbursement, and then MasterCard will charge you money when you want to disperse one of these things. Finally, MasterCard has a paper form and Visa is online. So there are notable differences that make MasterCard less successful in being able to reverse these disbursements. For RPPS bill payments, we're able to reverse for any reason, and we have good rates on getting that back, but it has to be done within 5 days. On the regional networks, any IT error, we can reverse. It just requires money on the card. Okay. All right. Let's discuss the MasterCard process, because I want to change a little bit how this works today. Okay. Today, we're filling the form out, reaching out to the issuer, and we are submitting that back to the MasterCard when we hear back from the issuer, which is rare. What we'd like to do is we'd like to start having our merchants fill this form out. It's not a long form. The hard part is actually contacting and getting a hold of the issuer. So when you request a disbursement reversal on MasterCard, reach out to us, our support team. We will get you the form, as well as the issuer contact information and the information you need to reverse the transaction. At that point, we will get you information. You'll reach out to the issuer via email, explain the situation, why you want to reverse. And when you get the response back from the issuer, get it over to us with the form. We will submit it to MasterCard. Okay. And we hope that you'll have better luck on getting these responses back from the issuer. Okay, that's our true hope, is that you as a merchant can explain the situation better and be able to get the responses back from the issuer better than we can. Okay, so this is a new process, and so this will start immediately. So when you want to request a reversal on MasterCard, just let us know. We'll get you the data, contacts, and you reach out to the issuer. Okay. All right, finally, for today, let's discuss refund authorizations. So in October 2019, the networks started requiring, before a refund is sent, that you actually do a refund authorization to check if the card is still in good standing. Prior to then, you could send an unlinked refund or just a refund to a card, and then the issuer was responsible for getting the money back to the card holder. The refund authorization, the network's hope, would allow for a less issuer or less intensive process on the issuer side on refunding money. What the result has been that a small percentage of refunds actually fail now, where you can't get money back on that card. If the card's been closed or has been reported lost, stolen, or some issue with the card, these refund authorizations will fail and we're unable to refund the card. When this occurs, we'll ask you to contact, do one of two things. One, you can just speak to your customer and work out a way to get them money back through another means. Two is that you can contact us after speaking to your customer and get another card from that customer, and we can send a disbursement to the customer. Can't send a disbursement to the card that you're trying to refund because that failed, but we could send a disbursement to another card if you want to authorize that. And there's a publication you can see at the bottom of the screen. Visa has a nice write-up on these refund authorizations and what you can expect for the return codes when it fails, and they'll describe what you should do with your customer, which is get another card typically. Okay. All right, just real quick on the summary on the excessive retries. Again, in April of this year, Visa is going to start charging for every retry above 1 on those category 1 return codes. 57 is the most common that we expect a lot of money to accrue on those. We can manage this for you. If you don't want to change your system, we can manage them and stop authorizations above 1 or 30-day period if you'd like on cards. And we can also manage the issue with the 15 or more retries in a month if you'd like us to, or we just block attempts from you. We also cover disbursement reversals and the change we're making on MasterCard to increase the odds of getting money back on MasterCard. Or contact us. We're going to get you the issuer contact as well as the form MasterCard requires to refund a dispersal. And we'd like you to reach out to the issuer and get the form back to us. And then we will, of course, get that to MasterCard to refund the reversal. And finally, on the refund authorizations, if you do get a declined refund, that's because the card typically has been closed or there's fraud reported on the card. In that case, we recommend getting another card from the customer and then having us or you do a disbursement to the card. All right. With that, I am love to take questions.
Yeah. So Roddy, let's go to the next slide and talk about present our next webinar, which is going to be in March. We're going to talk about how you can scale to service new countries. Rodney, do you want to say a few words about that before we go to the Q&A? We have some questions, so if you have them, again, click on the Q&A button and type it in and we'll respond to it.
Yeah, actually great. Yeah, so the next webinar we're going to cover is actually different geographies. And so for merchants that are interested in processing in Canada and bringing their service to Canada, we're going to be discussing what's required for that and potentially have a bank join us on that, a Canadian bank, to discuss how you set your service up in Canada. By then, we hope to have a couple Latin American company or countries covered as well. We're also going to discuss international remittances, so how you can originate payments from the United States and do instant payments to the various countries in blue. And I think it'd be very, very educational for those that want to look outside the United States. Okay. All right, with that, why don't we take questions? Jason, do you want to read the question, then we can reply?
Yep, I'll read the questions and I'll put them over there so people can see them while they're answering. Yeah. So first question is from Jacqueline. 15 declines per unique card or 15 declines total per merchant?
Yeah, this is per unique card, Jacqueline. So sorry I wasn't too clear on that. If you try the same card 15 times and you get a decline in the 30-day period, that 16th decline you get on that unique card will start accruing the fees. So it's all about number of declines for a unique card in a 30-day period. Okay.
So we also have a question from John. How does excessive retry blocking work with ISOs?
So it's all about the merchant ID. And so an ISO may have 100, 200 merchant IDs, and the network will look at that merchant ID for excessive retries. So it's not at the ISO level, it's actually at the merchant ID level, okay?
Okay. So James also asked a question of, I thought that MasterCard can charge up to $2,500 for the bigger amounts, basically the full amount of the disbursement. I'm not really clear on the exact nature of that, but Rodney, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is on disbursement reversals. So if a merchant disperses, say, $5,000 to a MasterCard, then the merchant wants to get that money back. Let's say there was a fraudulent loan taken out, 5,000 was dispersed to the loan, and the merchant wants to get that $5,000 back. Then the merchant can request to reverse that $5,000 disbursement. A MasterCard charges $50 to receive the form and get the money back. What we discussed today was the process to get the form sent to MasterCard. That includes issuer reach out and just filling the form out. But the key piece is you have to get approval from the merchant in writing, in email, before we can submit the form to MasterCard. The $50 is a fixed fee for MasterCard, which means that anything, if you're trying to refund, or if you're trying to get money back on a $40 disbursement, you're going to lose $10. MasterCard's going to charge you $50, even if it's $40. Okay.
Great. So we actually still have 4 questions, or several questions left. So next question is from David. Now supporting Canada for push to debit?
Yes, both push to debit, debt repayment, account funding, or just e-commerce. But push to debit is actually pretty broad in Canada. Visa has close to universal support on push to debit. MasterCard has low coverage today. They actually, it works on MasterCard except at Bank of Montreal, which unfortunately I think is probably a third of all MasterCards in Canada. Visa has lion's share of the market. Most Visa cards work on push to debit in Canada. MasterCard is a smaller part of the market, and Bank of Montreal does not support it, but other banks like President's Bank in Canada do support push to debit. And it's been very successful for those that use it, primarily on Visa with a small amount of MasterCard.
Okay. So we have our first anonymous question. Hopefully I get this right. For the donation transaction with MCC 8398, I'm hearing banks do not like this transaction as an OCT. Any insight into decline OCT for disbursement use cases, e.g. GoFundMe type platform startups? Any ideas on how this may be an issue, or why this may be an issue?
I don't. So we have a couple 8398s that we're running on disbursements today, and I don't see high decline rates. What we see declines on are any quasi-cash typically. Quasi-cash and gaming MCCs. So 7995, we have a small program on, and we see significant declines, I think, at Chase. On quasi-cash, a lot of that's been fixed, but we still see declines on quasi-cash, particularly at the Cash App, which is a fairly big a new program by Square. We see declines on disbursements and collections on Cash App. We don't see significant decline rates on any charitable or donation MCC, though. We don't see any unique decline rates on those.
Okay. Well, we're going to be wrapping up here in about 3 minutes. So we got 2 more questions. Ivan asked, we get some chargeback for transactions that we have already refunded back to the customers, and in some cases, we do not win the dispute. Any best practices?
Yeah, so this is about our representment, and I'd like to see 1 or 2, and I'd love to, if you sent one of those in. When we represent a chargeback, we have an ability to indicate that this was paid through other means, and we attach the disbursement network ID so that they can look at it, the issuer can look at it. And we should win those, and we're happy to represent those for you. And I'd like to just look at 1 or 2 to make sure we're doing our job properly. But if if you sent money back and it was through other means, through a disbursement, then you should win that chargeback, and we should win it for you.
Okay. Got two more left. So in terms of refund on MasterCard, can't we just do the disbursement instead right away?
You can. The issue with that is that you will get more chargebacks. Not a lot, but for unscrupulous cardholders, they may elect to charge some of that back. We should win in the end, but you always want to send a refund if you can. And the reason is that the issuer associates the refund with the original purchase and can't charge that back. The disbursement is unlinked to the purchase, so potentially you could charge back that purchase. We will represent that, saying that they were paid through other means, the disbursement, but you still may get some low-level chargebacks doing that practice. Okay, so if you can refund it, do it.
Okay, so we got one last question from Ahmed. So Ahmed asks, let's suppose the disbursement push is done to a Green Dot prepaid and we find out it's fraudulent. It's highly unlikely that the issuer, Green Dot, does not have an email on file. How would this work if we want to return this push?
So we would get you Green Dot's email address, and we'd get you a few contacts at Green Dot, and you would email them, let them know that the funding was fraudulent or the loan they took out was fraudulent. And you would give them the information we give you, and Green Dot would email you back and say, we approve the reversal of the disbursement. At that point, you get us that email and the form, and we would get that money back for you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, Rodney,
and again, just we have had a hard time getting hold of issuers. Green Dot, I'm not sure we've had a problem with Green Dot, but we have had problems with some of the bigger banks, just getting a hold of the right person to authorize the disbursement reversal. Okay.
Well, great. Well, Rodney, thank you so much for all the knowledge and answering so many rapid-fire questions so quickly. I just want to say from all of us at TabaPay, thank you so much for coming to our webinar. If you have any suggestions for future webinars, please let us know. Please reach out to sales@tabapay.com if you have any further questions, need follow-up, want to talk with someone about our services. Thank you very much. And Rodney, if you have anything else to say, go for it. Otherwise, we'll close it out. And thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. We always appreciate your business. Thank you, folks.